The main focus of this podcast episode is to prevent you from doing this, looking like this, and ultimately sounding like this. What's going on, y'all, man? Welcome back to the Broken Traditions Podcast with your host, Leron Gaskins, a.k.a. Big Ellie.
They call me Big Ellie.
On this podcast, we like to discuss the overconsumption of cell phones, digital devices, how we're addicted to these things, and how these things are how we so drawn to these things, like a moth to a fire. How we so drawn to these things, and how to break away from it, how to break away from being so attached to these devices. You guys like that kind of content? You guys need help with that kind of stuff as well? Download my free workbook, the digital release. You see it behind me. If you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify or Patreon, or if you're listening to this, I have a free workbook, right? Called the digital release. It helps you get back control of your life. It helps you break away from the digital incarceration that a lot of us are locked into, right? Because ironically, a cell phone is called a cell, and I feel like we're locked into these cells. And I want to help you break away from the digital incarceration. So download my free workbook, the digital release, right? So this week's episode, we're going to talk about texting and driving, right? Texting and driving. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because recently, I guess I could say, me driving a pickup truck, I'm set up higher, right? I'm driving a pickup truck. I'm sitting up a little higher, and looking at, people's cars and looking into people's cars just by observing and walking around, driving around the road. And I see a lot of people just texting. A lot of people are on their phones more often than not. And I want to have the conversation. But before we had this conversation, I also want to address something real quick, right? If you guys been rocking with Broken Traditions for quite some time, you guys been checking out the content and seeing what we got going on. And now you may notice something different. We have a new look, right? So I upgraded the studio, right? So hold on, we get a BT bomb for upgrading the studio. So we upgraded the studio, and with the upgrade of the studio, man, it's a new look. I wanted a more cleaner look. I want less distractions behind me. I just wanted a different look, right? I want a different look, and the upgrade, it was something that I wanted to do because I want to give you guys a better product. And also, me upgrading it came by the way of you guys supporting me, right? Whether that's from super chats, whether that's from super chats on live streams, whether that's from super chats on videos, whether that's from cash apps, whether that's from you guys becoming members on Patreon, whether that's got you guys becoming members on YouTube, whether that you guys buying merch from brokentraditions.com, buying merch for Windsor Lessons. Whether that is, supporting my affiliates. Whatever you guys doing, man, to support Broken Traditions, I greatly appreciate you guys. And, you guys pouring into me, I want to pour back more into the content. So that is why you see the new setup. So let me know in the comments if you guys are watching this on YouTube, Spotify, Patreon. Let me know how you feel about the new setup compared to the last setup. Should I take these walls down and go back to the last setup? Or should I keep these up? I'm not going to lie. I want to hear your opinion, but your opinion is not going to make that much of a difference because I'm going to keep this setup, right? But let's get back into the to the episode. I just want to give you guys, my appreciation for rocking with Broken Traditions and rocking with Leron Gaskins, a.k.a. Big Ellie.
They call me Big Ellie.
All right, so the texting while driving, right? Like I said, driving the pickup truck, or I quite often, more often times than not, I'm usually in the truck, right? Like if it's not a pickup truck, it's an SUV, what have you. So more often than not, I'm in the pickup truck or the truck. So you get to kind of look down and in, or you eye level with most drivers. Sometimes not even a pickup truck. I'm driving a box truck, right? So it depends on what I need to drive for work. And you do see a lot of people texting. You see a lot of people on their phones. You just see it a lot, right? And I guess not as recent as me driving the other day. Another recent story of I'm seeing people texting and driving was when my wife and I were in Colombia, right? We went to Colombia. So, I talked about Colombia a lot of times, but my wife and I were in Colombia and we were waiting for my son because my son was coming from New York. We was coming from Atlanta. So waiting for my son. So like, all right, we got some downtime. Let's go do some sightseeing. So we wanted to go to the Montserrat. I think that's how you pronounce it. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, please forgive me. We went to the Montserrat. So it was like this church that is on a mountain that is 10,000 feet high, right? Pretty high mountain. My wife and I, we like to hike, and we was like, oh, we're going to hike this mountain. They would not allow you to hike the mountain at that time. They was like, no, you have to take the trolley up. That's the only way to get up there. So we had to take the trolley up there, and the views are beautiful, right? But on our way to the Montserrat, we had to get an Uber, right? This Uber was hella sketch. First of all, we got into the Uber vehicle. Your man didn't have seatbelts in the back seat. I don't know why he lifted seats up and put the seatbelts under the seat. Like, I don't know why he did that. So I'm like, dog, you got to get the seatbelt up. So we had him pull over on the side of the road and figure out to get the seatbelt out before we got into the Uber. Like, why do you have a Uber with no seatbelts in the back seat? I don't know if it's different rules in Colombia. I don't know seatbelts are looked down upon in Colombia, but why you had no seatbelts? That's the first thing, right? But then the second thing, we're driving, but he's driving. We're in the back seat, Lex is sightseeing and looking at the stuff. This is our first time in Bogota, and I'm just being observant. I'm seeing the Uber driver literally just swiping on his phone with his phone on the window, just swiping, looking at either TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. And I'm just like, what? I don't know. I was just like, maybe this is a cultural thing here, but why are you on your phone while you got us in the back seat? You just swiping. You looking back, looking forth, looking back, looking forth. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but that's what really sparked this conversation, right? And when I used to live in New York, right, I had a business. It was like automotive electronics, right? And, being in business, you work with people who are in different fields so they could like help, you help them, they help you. So like, I might work with somebody who does upholstery. I might work with like auto mechanics and also work with like people at body shops. And I remember when New York State outlawed having your phone in your hand, and the people who own body shops or people who worked at body shops were literally upset. It threw me off. And I didn't understand it. Why are they upset that they banning something that needs to be banned, right? Like, if you texting while you're driving, they need to ban this. And you know what they told me? Texting and driving is good for business. I was like, I never looked at it like that. But people who text and drive, I guess, were getting in accidents so much, it was helping them. And now they thought their business was going to have like a huge churn because of the texting and driving now being outlawed. But they didn't have the churn. People were still texting and driving at an alarming rate, right? But ever since those conversations and ever since, just seeing this Uber driver in Bogota scrolling and driving and seeing people, looking at their phones left and right. And also, like the clip I showed you in the cold opening about the lady driving her car and, crashing, that does happen. And I also want to share another story with you guys of Liz Marks. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, her story about texting and driving. But ever since those conversations and ever since just looking this up, I now look at my own behaviors while driving. And I did things to place my phone out of sight. I would say this. After I had conversations with body shop owners, right? Auto body shop owners. I don't want to say like body shop like you think I'm talking about BBLs. But having a conversation with auto body shop owners, I start doing things to place my phone out of sight, out of mind, right? And not needing my phone during my drive just to be safe, right? Because, I got my son in the car, just making sure that I'm safe. I'm on the road. I'm very, alert. During that time, I was driving back and forth to Virginia for software development school. So it was a lot I had going on. But I realized the more advanced these phones became, the more addicted / dependent I became to the phone. And it became a distraction. So, me working in, I guess, automotive electronics, I was able to wire up my phone, maybe it's like to the armrest, so it could stay charged, so I could hear everything. And, I wasn't using the phone as a map at the time, right? I had like a in-dash navigation. But then, like, when the phones became the map, I'm like, oh, maybe I could wire it right here so I could just kind of look at it right here. But me having it right there, looking at it, and the phone becoming more and more addicted, more and more, I'm more dependent on the phone. I was like, all right, I'm noticing the pattern that I keep looking at it, right? And I'll talk about this on another podcast episode, how we use our phone for entertainment, for everything, right? Like, the phone basically replaced everything that was in the living room. And we use the phone for entertainment while driving, whether that's music, podcasts, and, in some cases, it's videos, right? In some cases, it's social media, like I talked about the Uber driver in Bogota. It became our source of navigation. And as always, it was a device that we could be used to communicate with others. The safe route was verbal communication, and the dangerous route was texting each other. So texting while driving was an issue. But when phones started to become heavily addicted to by design, we went from texting while driving to full-blown content consumption while driving. TikToks, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, those are the biggest culprits. Those are the biggest things that kept us addicted. Unfortunately, the rise of scrolling behind the wheel also tied to the rise of crashing behind the wheel. In 2023, there were 3,275 people killed in motor crashes involving distracted drivers in the United States. And also, 324,819 people were injured in motor vehicle crashes involving distracted drivers. In 2023, more than 3,000 people died and over 300,000 people were hurt because someone took their eyes off the road and their mind off the wheel. These statistics are certainly underestimated because distracted driving is hard to measure, and we have to have proof to even have this stat. But here's the craziest thing about distracted driving. The danger isn't the phone, it's the dopamine. Dopamine is the brain chemical reaction that rewards us for anything that feels good. We could talk about sex, we could talk about gambling, we could talk about food, and now we could talk about notifications. Every time your phone lights up, your brain gives you a tiny hit of dopamine. That's the same methods that's used in casinos to keep people addicted to slot machines and blackjack tables. Trust me, I know about being addicted to blackjack tables. The problem is dopamine rewards you instantly, while the danger that is in front of you, like, driving, maybe something popping out, that feels distant. And that is very problematic. Shout out to my boy, D Mays, right? Shout out to my boy, Danilius Mays from Mind Games Uncut, right? He had a video I want to share with you guys, how he talked about what he went through going, watching, I guess, social media while driving. Check this out.
And I'm gonna tell y'all, man, if we continue to be on social media like we do, like, I used to be on social media so damn bad, I'm driving on my phone on social media. I stopped that. That was crazy. I didn't tell nobody this, but I was on the highway, man, and I almost hit a truck on damn social media.
That is insane. That is insane. But shout out to D Mays. Shout out to D Mays of Mind Games Uncut for being that full transparent, right? If you guys want to watch his full live stream, I'll put a link in it into the show notes. But shout out to D Mays for being fully transparent about what almost happened to him while he was driving. And the reason why this happened, or almost happened, I could say, is because our brains care more about the quick reward than the long-term consequences. That's why people say, let me check this real quick. Let me see this real quick. Oh, this notification going off. Let me see. You're not making a logical decision. Your brain is chasing a reward. The primitive part of our brain, the limbic system, reacts faster than the logic part of our brain. So when your phone buzzes, the notification, I don't know. This kills me. I don't know why people do this, but that little flashlight that goes off when you get a notification, like, why do you need a whole flashlight? I don't know. I just hate seeing that. It's a pet peeve of mine. But when those notification goes off, the reward center of your brain fires off dopamine before the logical part brain says, hey, I'm doing 75 on 75, or I'm doing 85 on 85. Or if you're one of these, I don't know, these Hellcat Dodge Charger dudes, you're doing 120 on 85 and having a whole police chase and dipping in and out of traffic. But, I digress on that. It's something I see too much in Atlanta. But you going that fast, your brain said, yeah, I'm doing, like I said, 85 on 85. Let me not check that now. But it don't say that. What it does is that dopamine is saying, let me check this message real quick. And, and this is why, like, people that you think is responsible, right? Say, like, adults and parents and, I don't know, police officers, professionals, whoever, and they find themselves glancing at the phone while they behind the wheel. It's not that they don't care about their safety. They're addicted to the hit. And oddly enough, right, when New York, I talked about New York, I just want to talk about this part real quick because I kind of thought about it. Oddly enough, in New York, when texting while driving, hold your phone while driving was outlawed, from what I understand, from talking to police officers, there was not a lot of tickets being written up on that. And you know why? Because the police officers were doing the same thing as the people driving the vehicles that was doing the same thing. And let me share this clip with you guys real quick of a police officer texting while driving and getting into an accident.
Sync will attempt to call 911. If you wish to cancel the call, please hold the phone button.
Let's talk about how phone addiction rewires the brain, because we're not distracted drivers. We're dopamine hungry drivers, right? So phone addiction literally reshape how our brains function. And when you understand that, distracted driving feels like a mistake. It starts looking like a symptom. So let's break down what's really happening, right? So phone addiction shortens our attention spans. Smartphones train our brains to expect stimulation every few seconds. We went from long stretches of focus to scrolling through 5-second TikToks and Instagram reels. So each swipe teach your brain boredom is bad, silence is uncomfortable, stillness is something wrong. And I spoke about that on another podcast episode where there was a test that had people sitting in a room, right? They were sitting in a room and they sit there for 15 minutes with just straight boredom. But if they want a stimulation, they could shock themselves. 25% of the women shocked themselves, 67% of the men shocked themselves. And there was one guy who shocked himself 190 times. Check out my other podcast episode about boredom. I'll talk about that a little more at length. I'll put that in the show notes if you guys want to check that podcast episode out. But when you're driving and nothing is changing, every 5 seconds, your brain starts searching for stimulation. Not because you're irresponsible. It's because your brain retrained to reject being quiet. The road did not get more boring. Our attention span just got more weaker. But then we also could talk about the phantom notifications, right? And phantom notifications is one of the wildest signs of addiction. And let me know in the comments, or if you listening to this on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, or what have you, like you listen to this, I guess, the audio part, but not the, the visual part. Let me know if you experienced this, because I know I have. So a phantom notification, right? Let me explain what that is first. It's like you think your phone went off. You thought you heard your text message. You thought you felt your phone vibrate, but the vibration wasn't there. The sound wasn't there. Or you panic to check your phone for no reason. And the crazy thing about the phantom notifications is our brains are predicting a dopamine hit before it even happens. It is the same neurological glitch people experience during drug withdrawals. The brain is firing off signals out of habit, not reality. And our brains are now trained for stimulation. So much so, it started inventing notifications that is not even real. Next, I want to talk about is the compulsive checking behavior. This is where the habit becomes automatic. The average person taps their phone, believe it or not, over 2,600 times a day, right? I did a podcast episode about this too, right? We building a catalog here at Broken Traditions, but I did a podcast episode about this, how the average person pick up their phone 96 times a day. That's once in every 10 minutes. But a person taps on their phone 2,600 times a day. And they're doing that not because they need to, but because their brain rewired the reward loop. So this is the reward loop, right? Reward loop. The cue, you're bored. The craving is dopamine. The response is checking the phone. The reward that you get is that small dopamine hit. And unfortunately, the reinforcement, you do it again. So cue, boredom, craving, dopamine, response, checking the phone, reward, small dopamine hit, reinforcement, do it again. And I honestly don't think a lot of people realize that's what they're doing. And when you're driving, this loop doesn't stop because you're behind a wheel. Your brain doesn't say, hey, I'm doing 85 on 85, let's be safe. I'm doing 75 on 75, let's be safe. Your brain says, it's bored, you're missing something, check your phone. Driving become background noise. This is the scariest part. When you consume digital content for years, your brain get used to being stimulated on demand. Your brain treats driving like background music to your real activity, being on your phone, which is just crazy. Driving with a steady pace, you're just chilling, driving, supposed to be focused, not that much going on, minimal novelty. It feels dull compared to being on your phone. So the crazy part about it, your brain plays drivers in the background like playing music or doing something else. So technically you're present, but mentally you're gone. And that's how people drift into lanes, miss red lights, or react late. The brain is half logged off. This is the gotcha that most people don't know. The dopamine cycle of a smartphone, the addiction, it mirrors gambling, nicotine, alcohol, and even early stages of drug dependency. That's crazy. But why is that though? Because they all operate the same way. Intimate rewards, fast dopamine spikes, quick crashes, desire to repeat. So if you're not addicted to the phone, you're addicted to the uncertainty behind every notification. So you look at it like, damn, did I get a like? Did someone comment? Is this email, text important? Don't be somebody who can have a work phone and a personal phone. You got it times two. This psychological design is identical to pulling a lever on a slot machine. So when we talk about distracted driving, we're not talking about bad decisions. We're talking about a brain that's rewired to chase dopamine, even when our life is on the line. It only takes a second. That is the biggest lie people who are addicted to phone tell themselves. Most people don't think of themselves as dangerous drivers. They think themselves as responsible people who happen to have their phone in their hands for a moment. But we tell ourselves lies to make bad decisions feel reasonable. So I want to now break down the best lies that we tell ourselves, right? I want to call this the greatest hits. The first greatest hit, right? Track number 1, I'm good at multitasking. This myth will outlive us all. Here's the truth. Our brain can't multitask. It task switches. That's the difference. People always say, yeah, I could multitask. You're not really multitasking. It's just going from one task to the other. It's not doing it simultaneously. So thinking you can multitask while driving is like thinking you could blink for 2 seconds without missing anything. It only works until it doesn't. So when you look down at your phone, your attention span drops, your reaction time slows down, your stimulation awareness disappears, and your brain has to reload the environment when you look back up. The split second people get badly injured or even worse, die. The National Safety Council called multitasking while driving a neurological impossibility. Yet, millions of people think they're the exception to this rule. They look down like, oh, I'm just changing a song. I'm just, about to load another podcast. pick another video on YouTube. But these small actions have huge risks. And the crazy part about it, right, when it comes to just changing a song or changing another podcast episode or, changing a YouTube video, what have you, we're not just changing the song or we're not just doing something real quick. It's the motion that opens the window to check in one notification, one message, one DM, a few swipes on social media. Changing the song or, something real quick is a gateway distraction. It feels harmless, but it triggers a dopamine loop that we talked about earlier. People probably don't crash because of a song. They crash because of that one swipe turned to 5 seconds of scrolling. Another lie we tell ourselves: I'm at a red light, so it's fine. First, right, I was thinking this was the classic American lie. Being born in America, living in America, my life is in America. But after I saw that the Uber driver in Bogota, Colombia, I think this lie might be global. We think red light is off-duty time, but the brain does not snap into awareness when the light turns green. Researcher Daniel J. Simmons calls this inattentional blindness. You're physically looking at something, but you're mentally gone. That's why people sit at green lights, strip into crosswalks, or they get rear-ended. Let me know in the comments if you have any one of those. Just thinking that, you at a red light and you there, but your brain is not, I guess the elevator didn't get to the floor yet, right? That's another, I guess, a good analogy. I think that was a good analogy. The elevator did not get to the floor yet. So let me know if you ever had that happen to you in the comments. But checking your phone at a red light, it feels safe until you realize your brain stays on the phone long after the light changes. Another lie we tell ourselves: I know these roads, I'm safe. I call this the confidence trap. Being familiar with something make you less alert, not more. So when you drive down roads, your brain goes on autopilot. So you stop scanning, you stop anticipating, you're not really fully engaged. And when that happens, that's when unexpected danger hits the hardest. It could be some kid just running into the street. It could be, I'm not laughing at the kid running to the street and getting hit, right? But I'm thinking about something else, right? So like, say a cyclist you didn't expect. And I remember this because I'm just thinking about this. We were cycling in New York and we were cycling with this guy, right? I'm not going to say his name, but we were cycling with this guy and he was notoriously known for taking off his feet out the clip and kicking cars that wasn't paying attention. So if you don't want to get hit in Brooklyn with pennies or get your car kicked and, somebody just dipping in and out of traffic, you can't catch them, pay attention, right? But a cyclist you didn't expect, a vehicle braking unexpectedly, or debris on the highway. Like last night, my wife and I, we went to a birthday gala and I'm driving home. There's a whole ladder in the highway. Like, a ladder? How do you have a whole ladder in the highway? But if I wasn't paying attention, if I was doing something else besides paying attention to the road and driving, I would have hit that ladder and messed up my whole entire vehicle. But, knowing these roads don't make you safe. It makes you overconfident. The moment you think you're the safest is usually the moment you're least prepared. And the lies I put out there, right, these are not personal. Because now I want to kind of zoom out with a wide angle lens and look at a whole landscape. In America, right, this country that we're in America, we worship speed, convenience, productivity, instant gratification, and staying connected 24/7. So with that being said, we're taught to move fast, stay reachable, and never miss a message, respond immediately, and stay entertained. And our devices are designed to support that lifestyle. So we're not lying to be reckless. We're lying because our culture taught us to prioritize convenience over caution. These lies about driving don't come from individual people making bad choices. They come from our culture that rewards distraction and treats constant phone use as normal behavior. It's I would say this, to me, it's not a personal flaw. It's just being a product of the environment that we live in. Distracted driving is not a moment of weakness. It's a lifetime of cultural conditioning, and it only changes when we finally tell ourselves the truth and stop living with these lies. Now, the culture, right? The culture behind distracted driving. Driving isn't dangerous, but our constant need, I should say, for stimulation is. So driving while distracting isn't just a personal problem. It's a cultural one. So let me explain. Because in America, we live in a society where being disconnected feels wrong. And the mindset bleeds into every part of the road. So let's break down the culture that makes distracted driving the almost inevitable. America. In this culture in America, we are addicted to stimulation. We live in a country that refuses to sit still. Silence feels awkward, stillness feels unproductive, and boredom feels like failure. From the moment we wake, the TV's on, the group chats is going off. Like I said, probably those stupid lights notifications going off. I'm about to say something I should have said. The stupid light notifications going off, or your phone is pinging, and the algorithm, right? The algorithm is calling our name. I was guilty of that. I used to wake up and look at the phone just to see what people were saying on, Instagram. That was my drug of choice. But we train ourselves to be entertained at all times. So when we get behind the wheel, the world is slower, quieter, and less stimulating. Our brains start hunting for something to fill the gap. The road did not get less boring. We just got more addicted to stimulation. Also, we live in a culture of instant gratification. This is the heart of it. We want everything fast, now, and immediately. Let's think about this. Amazon delivers in hours. Uber Eats, Grubhub, any food app you could think of, they bring you meals in minutes. And social media gives you feedback on something in seconds. The phone became the device that satisfied all of that on demand. So even when we're driving, the mindset doesn't change. We still think like this. We still think that I need to answer this now. I need to see that notification now. I need to stay connected now. And in our modern culture, we treat every notification like breaking news. Even if it's a personal picture of your slice of pizza you posted in your stories. This right here might sting a little bit, but we're going to talk about it. Before the smartphones, being unreachable was normal. Ironically, Lex and I talked about this the other day at the Beltline. But today, if you're not reachable, it feels like something is wrong, right? And I'm guilty of this, right? Like, say for whatever reason, right? Jamari location is off. Maybe he's somewhere where he don't have service or whatever. I'm calling. I'm like, yo, what's going on? If I see his notification is off, I want to know what's going on. So being unreachable was a normal thing. I didn't grow up like that, but it was a normal thing. But now people being unreachable is abnormal, I should say, right? So the culture we live in now, right, is responding late. Oh, that's rude. Missing a message. Oh, you suspicious. You suspect. Going quiet is weird. Not posting something means you're hiding something. And setting boundaries, oh, you antisocial. And because all of that, people feel guilty ignoring their phones, even when they're doing something as serious as driving. Modern culture does not just encourage 24/7 connection, it expects it. The pressure to perform online. We live in a culture that loves to document everything. And I'm guilty of this, right? Like I shout out to the channel members. I said to the channel members, shout out to you guys on Patreon and on brokentraditions.com and on YouTube. I did a 30-day detox of social media apps on my phone, right? And I documented it. But some of the videos that I did were literally videos of me driving, right? So I have this whole setup in my truck where I have this professional grade suction cup that holds my phone so it won't bounce and stuff like that. But I have that in my truck and I'm driving, recording myself, talking about, the 30-day challenge. So I'm guilty of this, right? So I'm doing video journals of me driving while I'm talking. And I'm gonna give you another example how I'm guilty of this. I was in Montana, right? I was in Montana, and the landscape in Montana was just so beautiful, right? Just seeing it was so beautiful. And I had to go there for work. And I would love for my wife to go to Montana with me, but she couldn't come. It was like real short notice. Tickets were stupid expensive because it was short notice. And I wanted to take pictures of my wife. I wanted to take pictures of the mountains for my wife to see when I get back home. So my irresponsible self, driving one hand, got my Canon series camera with the 50 millimeter lens, taking pictures like this while I'm driving. Snap, 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 snap. And when I was driving, I didn't think about, I'm going to hit something because it's open roads, nobody in the roads. But, I don't know how the odds of this happening, right? So when I went to Montana, right, just a quick backstory. When I went to Montana, I had to stop in Salt Lake City because I was going to Billings, Montana. So it's not like Billings, Montana is not like a big airport, right? So I had to go to Billings, Montana. And when I went to Billings, from Salt Lake to Billings, I sat next to a gentleman. And he was also from Long Island. So what are the odds of me going to Montana, sitting next to somebody that is from Long Island? So him and I were talking. He said, how he moved to Montana and he loves it out there, what have you. But he said to me, you have to be very, very aware when you're driving because the last thing you want to do is hit an elk or a bison. He said, you hit one of those, you're dying. Montana speed limit is 80. And if you hit one of those going that fast, you're dying. So me taking pictures of this beautiful landscape, I could have easily crashed into an elk, crashed into a bison, crashed into, one of those two large animals. I mean, I didn't see an elk while I was there, but I did see a bison. Huge. These things are huge. And if I would have crashed into that while I try to take pictures because my brain is not reprocessing the environment of what's going on in fast enough time, me and that Chrysler Pacifica that I rented would be destroyed. But like I said, I am guilty of this. Just because I wanted content. Like I said, I talk about doing the journal entries. I talk about taking pictures while I'm in Montana on a whole camera. Not even my smartphone, a whole camera. Smartphones are probably a little easier. I'm using a full-blown camera taking pictures. And, for a lot of people, the car became another stage for them to record, right? They post, check comments, and curate stories. Distracted driving is what happened when the culture collides with addiction. Like I said, and I'm guilty of it. But this is the big perspective shift. People aren't just picking up their phones while driving because they're reckless. They're doing it because the American lifestyle is designed around constant stimulation, instant feedback, nonstop connectivity, digital identity, and public performance. And driving is one place where those habits become life-threatening. And this is why distracted driving is so dangerous. It's the intersection of cultural conditioning and technological addiction. You're not fighting temptation behind the wheel. You're fighting the modern culture that told you to never be alone with your thoughts. Until our culture relearns how to disconnect, our roads will always be filled with drivers who are physically present and mentally scrolling. So I started the podcast with a woman texting while driving, and ultimately she crashed into a mailbox and had to scream, right? So I want to share that clip with you guys in its entirety, right? So this clip was a clip that was kind of going viral in a sense, right? So let's pull this clip up real quick. All right, so here we go. Pull this up real quick. So you guys are listening to this on, Apple Podcasts or Amazon Podcasts. If you guys want to see it, I would suggest to go to either Spotify, Patreon, or YouTube so you can see this clip, right? But like I said, this is a lady driving her vehicle, and she rented this vehicle from Toro, right? And shout out to the Toro owner for having a dash camera in the car, and he got evidence of what this lady did. So this clip right here that we also sharing with you guys is multiple angles of this happening, right? So this is the end in-cab camera. That's what it's called, right? The in-cab camera of her driving and texting. And the crazy part about what this camera this guy has, it shows how fast she's going. So right now she's texting and she's going 60 kilometers an hour, right? So that's roughly, say, 40 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour. So now she got 67 kilometers. So she's going at a pretty decent speed while she's both hands off the wheel while she's texting in the vehicle. And now this is the front-facing camera showing her veering off into the street and boom, hitting the mailbox. And that is the scream. That's the scream that we had earlier on the podcast. And this is her veering off and just screaming, right? Like I said, honestly to me, right? I'll be full transparent, and I do think the way it looked and way it sounded was pretty funny, right? Here's another clip, I guess, of the front-facing camera and the in-cab camera. So the road-facing camera and the in-cab camera while she's driving distracted, and how this happened. And she's like, this is crazy. She's going legit fast with both hands off the wheel and crashed into somebody's mailbox. And she knocked their mail out too. Like, I think the post office would also convict her for what she did in that. But yeah, so that's that right there. And I want to now share another video, right? Because, yeah, that's pretty funny. I want to share a video with you guys of something a little more serious. So this is a video I got from the United States Department of Transportation, USDOT. And this is a video of a young lady named Liz Marks. Liz Marks' story is pretty sad. So let's share this story with you guys. Liz Marks' story.
I did not think that Liz was connected to her mobile phone. I didn't realize that she loved her phone as much as she did.
I use my cell phone every second, every minute, every hour. Like, if I didn't have it, I would freak out because I couldn't connect with my friends. I couldn't connect with anyone. Couldn't connect with social media or anything. If I didn't have my cell phone, I felt lonely.
How many people could relate to that? They have their phone all the time. And if they didn't have their phone, they felt lonely. I'm glad that, Liz Marks did this interview. Her and her mom did this interview, because this is a cautionary tale that needs to be amplified. And I'll put a link to this full interview in the show notes so you guys can watch it in its entirety. But let's continue on.
I would ask her all the time, Liz, do you text and drive? And she said, no, Mom, I swear I don't. Don't worry, I don't use my phone when I'm behind the wheel.
I ignored these warnings about texting while driving because everyone else was doing it, so I thought it was okay. I thought I was invincible, but clearly, I was completely wrong.
I was getting ready for work, and then 12 hours later, I'm in ICU staring at my daughter, who's bald, and tubes running in and out of her body, and it's just overwhelming devastation over a stupid text.
So they put a text on the screen, so I'm going to read the text for you guys who are listening to this on audio podcast. The text Liz was reading before the accident was from her mom. So her mom sent her a text, and she had to pick up her phone and read the text from her mom. And ultimately, it changed her life.
The consequences of my life now after the car accident is the fact that I'm blind in one eye now. I cannot smell. I cannot hear that very good because a bone broke in half and covered my eardrum. I can't create tears because both my tear ducts got damaged, and I can't put my body to sleep naturally. I take medicine and go to sleep. The hardest part about my life after the car accident was the fact that I was alone. Everyone was away at college. I wasn't. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go to college. My friends were there for me at first, but after a while, they weren't. They got tired of me. They got tired of all my problems.
Don't text your loved ones when you know they're driving. It can change their lives forever.
If you get a text Don't look at it.
Liz, thank you for the for that vulnerability, sharing that moment with people, and also putting that warning out there. And like I said, that warning should be amplified 1,000 times, because texting while driving, those could be the consequences. She said she's blind in one eye. A bone broke in her head where her eardrum is at, so now she have trouble hearing. She had to take medicine to go to sleep. She can't cry because the tear ducts are damaged. And the sad part about it, she admittedly said she was addicted to the phone because she didn't want to feel lonely. And after she had to crash, what happened? She started feeling lonely. I want to talk about ways that we could break the tradition of distracted driving, right? Because distracted driving isn't a life sentence. You can unlearn it the same way you learned it. This part of the episode, I want to kind of shift away from the awareness and kind of shift towards action, because now we can understand the role that dopamine, our culture, and addiction play. You have more control than your phone wants you to believe. So let's break down some steps that will make a difference. Some things that I've done, and also some things I'm going to start implementing, right? One thing I'm going to start implementing, real talk, is use Do Not Disturb while driving. Most people have a decent phone, and in these decent phones, some of the minimum standards are drive mode, where the phone will sense that you're driving, like something inside the phone can sense while you're driving, or say like you have Apple CarPlay or Android CarPlay, you have that device CarPlay mode. It also know that you're driving. It would turn your phone into Do Not Disturb. So most phones already have this built in. So once the phone detects a motion, it turns off the notifications. So you could use Do Not Disturb while driving. It blocks notifications, it silences pings, and it stops the dopamine loop before it starts. Let me tell you why it works. Since you don't get those buzzes, you don't get those cues. You don't get those cues, you don't get the cravings. You don't get the cravings, you don't get the urge to grab the phone. It interrupts the addiction at the root. You can't be tempted by a notification that you don't hear. One thing that I do, right? Put the phone out of reach. This may sound simple, but it's one of the most effective strategies you could do. The further your phone is from your hand, the less power that it has, right? I talked about it earlier before the phones became really addictive. I used to put the phone in the armrest, control everything through the screen. Some people, you can put the phone in the glove box. You can put the phone in the back seat, or if you have like a car with the back seat pocket, you could reach around, put the phone in the back seat pocket. So when you get out the car, you could just reach around the passenger seat back pocket and get the phone out when you're ready to get out the car, or when you're ready to put it into the car, you can put it right there. I know some phones have those little pockets in the back seat, so you could use that. Or your bag, Me, I have a book bag that I take a lot of times when I'm working in certain places and then bringing my laptop. So I have like this cell phone pocket, and I put my work phone and I put my personal phone in the cell phone pocket. And it works for me, especially now that, these vehicles have wireless Apple CarPlay. Not sure about Android, right? But I know they have wireless Apple CarPlay. And, before I start driving, I could upload my route. I could, put on some songs. I could just do a few things and just go. The key isn't hiding your phone, it's breaking the hand-to-phone reflex that our brain has built over the years. And like I mentioned before, I'm doing these things before I start driving. That's another thing you could do. Build your driving environment before you start driving. To me, right? This is what I believe. One of the biggest reasons people reach for their phones are, like I said, changing the song. Maybe you got to do something on the GPS, queuing up a podcast. Hopefully it's Broken Traditions Podcast. Shout out to Broken Traditions Podcast. Another thing you do is setting the temperature and also checking your route, where you're going. So before you pull off, why don't you set up your playlist? Set up your navigation, your climate, or have your podcast queued. If you set up the road right, you won't need your phone while you're on it. Now, the next step is something that I got from my son, and I did it because he mentioned it, and I was like, let me try this out. And that is deleting social media apps from your home screen. Not just deleting the app entirely. I've done that too. I deleted a lot of social media apps, but not deleting the apps entirely. Just remove it from the home screen. First, let me tell you why this works. 1, it decreases friction. 2, it makes mindless tapping harder. 3, it slows down compulsive checking. And 4, it forces intention. So you don't need to delete the apps entirely. It just makes your brain works a little bit harder to reach them. So it's like when you're on a diet, right? You put the snacks at the top shelf, that it takes a lot more effort to reach it. They are still there, but it's a little harder to reach. So sometimes that those cinnamon frosted Pop-Tarts that you wanna snack on, if it's on the top shelf, you got to get a stepping stool. You got to get these things to get the reach to them and make it a little bit harder to reach. And also, another thing you could do, recognize your triggers. For most people, what are the triggers are? Boredom, anxiety, silence, loneliness, curiosity, and sometimes it's just the habits that you have, right? Once you identify your top triggers, you can start planning around them. That's the wonders of it. So, for example, right, if boredom triggers you, listen to a podcast. If anxiety triggers you, put the phone out of reach. If silence triggers you, create a playlist ahead of time. If habits trigger you, turn on Do Not Disturb while driving. Replace the phone with a purpose. This is the heart of the broken traditions mindset. You ask yourself, what is driving supposed to give me? Maybe peace, thinking time, mental clarity, a break from stimulation. Driving is one of the last places in society where we can disconnect. Turn the vehicle into a quiet space, a place of reflection, a zone for mental resets, a break from digital world. This flips driving from being bored to necessary. Your vehicle becomes one of the places your brain gets to breathe. So the digital release workbook, right? My gift to you, the free workbook. You go to my website, brokentraditions.com. You can download it for free and use it. And people who've been using it and reaching out to me and giving me feedback, I greatly appreciate it. You know, this is actually the second iteration of the workbook because somebody gave me feedback and I made some changes to it because the feedback that I got. So if you guys got the workbook, you got some feedback, let me know either in the comments or Leron at brokentraditions.com. But everything that we talked about on this episode, dopamine, overconsumption, compulsive habits, it's addressed in the digital release. The digital release, a 7-day blueprint. Shout out to Jay-Z, shout out to KRS-One. But the 7-day blueprint to take your mind back from your phone, not just a car, but from everywhere else too. You don't beat distractions by trying harder. You beat distractions by breaking the digital habits that train your brain to crave stimulations in the first place. Appreciate y'all. Peace.